Okay, it's a pretty warm day. Chapter 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to take all those together. It just seems appropriate at this time. So, I kind of feel chapter 1 and 2 of part 3 here kind of a letdown, kind of a low point for me. You know, we just came out of the previous chapters with the war. And, you know, you could see the potential in people. You could see the potential even of Nikolai, you know, maybe him getting hurt and having to flee the battle. Maybe this is some potential for him to learn something. Or Andre having to see how the generals were behaving, how chaotic war was. Maybe this is a potential for him to kind of expand his vision of himself and the world. Even those soldiers at the front line just laughing together across the line, even though they fought afterwards. You see these glimpses of potential in humans. And then we switch to part 3, chapter 1 and 2, and we just have Prince Vasili kind of sort of this dark virtue manipulating Pierre. And Pierre kind of overcome with guilt and shame and confusion and lacking self-confidence. And he just can't avoid the situation of getting married to Ellen, even though a clear part of him says, you know, this is not a good idea. And it was almost kind of a depressing turn. And then it seems to start the same with these chapter 3, 4, 5. We see Prince Vasili kind of doing the same thing. We see Anatole. He's not exactly the most admirable of people. And the old Count Bolkonsky, he's just, you know, his same old self, mostly unkind. And he kind of like, humanity is kind of like, it's a real downer. And, you know, even though it's kind of a little bit circumstantial, you know, Marya in the end, you know, her father gives her the option, you know, you decide what you want to do, if you want to marry Anatole. And you kind of think, you know, she's very much inclined to do so. She has these kind of romantic visions of some Russian prince coming, and even as this is a conflict within her, you know, just sort of like with Prince Andrei. So I kind of see all these parallels. You know, she's sort of feels some shame within herself. She has these conflicting virtues within herself, with her faith and so on. And in the end, she gets a few nudges and says, no, I'm not gonna. And I don't know, this sort of breathed a bunch of fresh air into the situation. Again, even though her life is really constrained, and it was a few circumstances of her seeing Anatole with her Madame Bourine, I forget her name. You know, I kind of pretty cheering for Marya quite a bit. And, you know, here's a turn of events where she just narrowly escapes marrying Anatole, which, boy, can't imagine she being happy with that, at least on the surface of it, given what we know about Anatole. And it's kind of like a victory. You know, Prince Vasili's trying to manipulate the situation again, but he doesn't have the same, it's not at his home, he doesn't have the same control and influence over the situation, and you're kind of feeling relieved, I guess, with Marya being able to do this. And yeah, it kind of perks up the story for me again. And, you know, and it just goes also to show, at least within Maria's situation, you know, here her faith and her, here's a narrative that she just narrowly misses marrying Anatole, and she finds a whole peace of mind and contentment. And a lot of it is wrapped up in her faith and self-sacrifice. And she's just finding a lot of groundedness in that, which just reminds you how powerful that is to a person. And this is something sort of her brother lacks. Andre doesn't really have that. Pierre doesn't have that. You know, what is the equivalent of that, if at all, required for these people? And anyway, it kind of gives me a lot of encouragement. There's a number of little interactions between, you know, Maria kind of learning about her thoughts, seeing her father struggle with the idea of her going away, which is another funny thing. He treats her poorly, but I think, you know, does he love her? I think for sure he does, but we have to expand our view of what love is, because, I mean, we can certainly be unkind to the people we love. Just, if you've ever been married or had a friendship, you know, this is true. And so how these relationships go. But anyway, a number of little other nuggets and insights we could talk about, but I kind of wanted to kind of have this overarching thing and all these parallels between Marie's decision and Pierre's decision, and Prince Vasili kind of be involved in both, and the environmental influences, and just the little nudges and lucky or so unlucky incidents that kind of help a person make or not make a decision. And I think I was a little sad with the way chapter 1 and 2 went, and it kind of felt a similar tone the way chapter 3 and 4 were going, just kind of, oh my goodness. Mostly these guys, Anatole and Prince Vasili and old Count Bolkonsky, old Prince Bolkonsky, not really giving you a lot of anything to cheer for in humanity, and just at the end coming with Maria's decision. Way to go, Maria.